Hey everybody, grateful to be here for another episode. Hey Nancy.
Hey, Scott.
So in this training, in this episode, this is something I feel like, Nancy, we've talked about this for years and years and years. We just have never done an episode on it. And it's one of those kind of repeating patterns that we see from afar, from what we hear from other people, but also we experience it ourselves. And it's one of those head scratching topics where Nancy and I will sit there and just scratch our heads and like, why? Like, we just don't get it. So the title of today's episode and today's training is why some people continue to hire coaches and still don't move forward. So whether these people buy courses or join masterminds or hire coaches and they still don't do anything. And you hear this analogy all the time that the coach or the person that's hosting the mastermind, they end up taking the brunt of the blame when anytime you're hiring a coach or working with a consultant or joining a program, it is a collaboration. There are responsibilities that you have as a participant and as a client to get the most out of that coaching, out of that consulting or out of that program. And as the facilitator, you have to provide the roadmap or the path that that person needs to go down to achieve their goals. And from what Nancy and I see and hear from other people from afar, but also what we've experienced ourselves, you hear the analogy running an adult daycare center or herding cats, right? You continue to try to get people and steer them in the path, but these people still aren't doing the work. And Nancy and I sit there and we're like, why? I feel like we're taking crazy pills. People spend all this money, they dedicate all this time, but yet they're still doing nothing. So, Nancy, why? Why? Why?
Yeah, no, I love this topic just because, for me, right, every year that goes by, I think whenever I recap the year, I love to think about, what things went really well, what needs work, what are some things that we can stop doing. And we like to take a look, holistically at our business. And one thing that, I was kind of talking to Scott about. And right, we're very passionate about what we do. In fact, we are very big about making sure to give very specific action and strategy. And, we're kind of like a mix of coaching and consulting. And it's almost like if anyone has a question or needs something, it's like, here you go. Here it is. And a conversation that we had really dug into, and this was, a theme that kept popping up, right? We had multiple people that kind of came into our space that almost had like this ego, right? It was kind of like this ego of you would tell them, or you would give them the solution, and then it was almost like a repelling magnet. Like, okay, and then they would just disappear. They wouldn't do it, or, they wouldn't take action. And it was just so interesting to me because again, as a coach, right, we've worked with tons of clients, like thousands of clients at this point. And, it's not everyone, but there's definitely a huge chunk. And so we started seeing it more and more and more and more. I'm like, what is this? The group of people that will pay all this money and they make investments and they've hired coaches before, and it is the same pattern, right? They have all these big plans. They're brilliant. They're smart. They've got this big vision. They've done impressive things usually in their business, right? That they like to talk about quite a bit. Okay. And we identified, right? There's certain like little flags that'll pop up. For example, we'll get on a coaching call and they'll talk for about 45 minutes about themselves or their business rather than approaching the call, which we've already established. All right, let's dig into what we can, really focus on. Let's take a look at strategy. And so I started to notice the patterns. Okay. We get the people who like to kind of dump about themselves. We like the people who kind of like are resistant to what needs to happen. We started to see that maybe anytime a solution was offered, anytime there was a due date or something like that, the due date would just come and go and there was no progress or anything.
The other thing that I've also seen, Nancy, piggybacking off of what you said, is that when advice is given, we can see the label outside the jar. We always talk about when people are looking to grow their business, you're so in the
In
weeds
it.
of it, right? You're so in it, you can't see what actually needs to be focused on. That's why we hired a coach. And that's why we've substantially grown already this year because of the things that he's told us to do. But it makes me think about conversations that we've had with some people that we've worked with, and we've given suggestions. The the individual or individuals know that this is what needs to be done. And then the rebuttal is, but I don't want to do that. I want to outsource that. Now, let me be very open and transparent. When Nancy and I hired our business coach about 7 months ago, we had a very honest conversation with him about what we wanted to achieve this year. And he said, you are about 95% of the way there. You're missing just 5%. And he said that 5% will make or break the goal that you have for this year, but it's going to require you to get to work. And it's going to require you to do some things that are the next level. And here's where I kind of turn the mirror around. I was resistant to it at first because, full honesty, Nancy and I, yes, our business has been growing each and every year for the last 4 years incrementally. But he said to us, what you're doing right now is keeping your business exactly where it is. You want to get to the next level of your business, you're going to have to start doing some next level things yourself. So, one of the big things, and we've talked about this in prior episodes, but Nancy and I are going to be launching our first private community called the Expert Content Society at the end of July. And for the first time, we're putting together a proper affiliate JV partnership program for it. And he said to me, Scott, you're going to need to reach out to 100 people that you know. 100 people to see if they'd be interested in partnering with you to help launch your workshop and the community that you're going to be opening on day 3 of that workshop. And I said to him, I said, 100 people? He goes, yep. He goes, they could be current clients, they could be past clients, they could be people that you know in your sphere, they could be podcast guests, people that you've guested on podcast. He goes, you need to get at least 30 people agreeing to be on board with promoting your workshop to get more people to register so there's more people that are there when you want to open the doors. And my initial response was like, hell no, I don't feel like doing that. Like, I don't want to. And he said, this was the other big mirror turning moment. He goes, Scott, you're not going to send just some email blast from your email listserv, like sending it out to people. He goes, you need to text people. You need to call people. You need to
Personal
DM
reaching.
people on LinkedIn. You need to DM people on Facebook, on Instagram, people that you're connected to. You have to reach out to them personally. If I would have said that sounds great, but no thanks, there's no shot in hell that we would be on the path that we're on to achieve our goals. So this is what really gets me fired up is if you're being told by someone that can see the path that you need to go down and you want something out of your business, you want to increase your income, you want to get to that next level, but when you're given the path of exactly what needs to get done, you say thanks, but no thanks. I'd rather outsource it or I'd rather do something else. Nancy, what the hell is that?
That's that. It's actually really funny. And this is, if for anyone listening, right? We work with a lot of consultants, coaches as well, right? This could be something you're seeing in your clients as well. And the thing is I want you guys to realize like it's not you. In fact, this is, a fairly common thing. It was actually a friend of ours who's also, like in our space, also in the coaching world. And we had kind of voiced, what is this? We keep seeing this bubble up lately, and we hadn't seen it for a long time, but we saw a bubble up. And she was like, "Oh yeah, those are the professional tire kickers." You know, those are the ones who will literally uh, you know, basically sign up for every program under the sun and never ever take action. It's like this like dopamine hit they get by like investing in a program, and they will never take action. So, I think what I really want to kind of break down and what we want to kind of hit home in this episode, guys, is want to talk about the reasons, right, why this might be happening. And I want you to, whether you are the coach and you're experiencing this with your clients, or you might be that person, right? Because I think all of us, let's be honest, Scott shared, transparently, this was him. He needed to kind of let down his ego and go, you know what? There's things I got to do to hit the pavement to level up my business. Okay. So let's kind of dive into, Scott, like the three kind of main reasons, right? Like why this might be happening. And then we can talk about, how to kind of pivot a little bit.
So I already kind of alluded to the first reason, which is you're in love with the idea of change, not the reality of what you need to do in order to change. So I
Yeah.
kind of like preface that by that little lead in because you love the clarity of what needs to get done, but you absolutely despise the discomfort of making that change. So there's almost like this high, this oxytocin, dopamine rush of the potential of what's possible. But just like how people treat social media, you ghost the process, which doesn't make any sense because that's when I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. And I get the same questions when people are reaching out to work with me. They're like, will LinkedIn really work for me? Like, can I really get results? And I tell them honestly, if you apply exactly what I teach you and show you, you will get results. Nancy and I just had a conversation with one of our clients yesterday, in fact. And he stopped us like mid-conversation. He goes, "Listen, I just got to share something with you guys." He goes, "The prompts that you created within the community for my LinkedIn content," he goes, "it is beyond brilliant." He goes, "I've never gotten this much engagement ever before, and these prompts are saving me so much time, lessening the headaches that I have about creating content." And why that means so much to myself and Nancy is because A, we love hearing people that take action, and B, we love people seeing and hearing firsthand how their problems have been solved by something that we've created. So that first reason, you don't like the discomfort. Nothing happens inside the comfort zone. You have to stretch yourself in order to stretch and to grow your business. So that's reason number one. Nance, what's reason number two?
Yeah. So reason number two is you love coaching and you love hiring coaches because it makes you feel like you're moving forward, right? It makes you feel like you're doing something to take action. And the thing is it's not productive, but you think it is just to hear things and to tell stories, right? Like when you sit on a call and we actually go through strategy and we come up with action items and very specific things for you to do, talking about it doesn't do anything. Okay. There is nothing unless you actually have follow through. So if you are, again, hiring coaches and you don't take any action, okay, and you feel like, oh, yeah, we're productive because we're talking, guys, are you taking action? Right? If you're not, this is a big red flag. Okay. Scott, number three.
So the third reason is you're hiding behind this quote unquote fear disguised as strategy overload. So you're hiding behind the fear disguised as strategy overload, meaning there is constant planning, and that is leading to a fear of execution. So you're planning,
Now let's
planning,
get to part
planning. It's the failure to launch methodology, right? You're planning, 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 but then you have a fear of executing on that plan. Planning, 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 scared to launch the execution. Planning, planning, planning. But also, there's almost this underlying fear of testing yourself. So all you're doing is you're just collecting blueprint after blueprint after blueprint of quote unquote ideas and plans, but no actual measurable result to look at. So you're building out all these frameworks. You have all these blueprints for ideas and things that you want to do, and it, you're just holding your finger on top of that go button, and you're just your hand is quivering. You're just afraid to press go because of the fear of, well, what's going to happen on the other end of that. So it's almost like this safe space for these people where they just want to plan, 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 and then lean away from the fear. Plan, 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 build out a blueprint, have an idea, have this, have that. You don't get paid for ideas. You get paid on executing ideas that actually become something in your business. Now, there are some hidden patterns that you need to look out for. Now, there's a few of these. I'm going to kick off the first, and Nance, I want you to dive into the second one. So, if if you've resonated with some of the things that Nancy and I have talked about already, here's how you know that this could potentially be an underlying pattern that you are unknowingly or unconsciously doing yourself
For a client. Yeah.
or a client. So this is this. So for all the coaches, consultants out there that you may have been feeling this kind of resistance to from some of the people that you've worked with. So if you or someone that you're working with, there's this feeling that you or they are quote unquote almost ready. I'm almost ready. Give me 30 more days. Let's look at quarter number 3. Let's put a pin in it for now. And let's pick it up in a couple of weeks. So that almost ready becomes almost never. So that's the first little cue or sign that you can look out for. Nance, what's the second one?
Yeah. So, the next pattern is just like you feel very inspired, right? You're like, yes, I want to grow my business and I'm doing such great things, but you're not consistent. So again, right, we're missing the action piece. And then the third pattern, and then we're going to actually dig into, some of the takeaways. So Scott, if you want to share the third.
Well, the third is it kind of encompasses the previous two, which is you have all these huge and big and bold ideas. But when you're asked or you ask one of your clients for that proof of implementation, like, oh, what were your results? Did your email list grow? How many people registered? Oh, I actually didn't launch it yet, or I didn't do it yet. I'm gonna be doing it. So lots of ideas, but zero implementation. Nancy and I were listening to a podcast a while back, um, by Coach Ajit, and he beautifully, beautifully stated that so many people are in the knowledge cramming phase and not enough people are in the action taking phase. He said one of the easiest ways to grow your business is to stop knowledge cramming and start taking action on what you've learned.
Yeah.
So, a couple takeaways that we want to go over. There's three three little takeaways that we want you to really walk away from this episode and this training. So, for the coaches and consultants that are listening or watching that maybe have resonated with this, here's some advice that we can give you for your clients, or maybe this has resonated with you as a client of someone else. Maybe you're recognizing some of these patterns. Nance?
Yeah. So, the one thing that I really want to throw out there, because this is actually something that full transparency, Scott shared a little bit about his experience that I needed to work on, right? We run multiple businesses. I've got an agency, we do social media. Scott's got a consulting business. And then together we have our, business strategy and coaching. So it was really hard for me because, again, I was starting to stretch myself thin because we've got a lot of really wonderful things happening over in this business. But then Scott and I, have a lot of big focuses for our business together. And so the best advice that I got, again, from my coach was the same advice that I'll give all of you. Pick one strategy and one focus and commit to it. Okay. For me, it was commit to it for 6 months. For you, all I'm saying is even 30 days. So pick one strategy, one thing that you've got to implement in your business that you know will move the needle forward and commit to it for 30 days and no pivoting, no taking your focus off, right? Keep your eye on that. Choose to implement, do it. And if you got to tweak it later, give yourself that grace. Okay. It does not have to be perfect, but it's got to be action.
Which
Got
leads to number two, which is measure action, not insights, right? Measure actions, not insights. So after every single coaching session that you are a part of as a client, or after every coaching session that you are doing as the coach, the question that should come up is, what did I do with this? Or what are you going to do with this? From the client side, what did I do with this? What action did you take? On the coach side, you can simply ask your client, right? What are you going to do with this? And I love what our coach does with us after every call. He always says, before we end today's session, any feedback, any takeaways, anything you want to share before we jump off today. And it's so refreshing because, and we do this now in our sessions because now we get to hear takeaways and things that people are going to take action. So again, measure action, not insight. Now, the third of four things, I'm going to let Nancy finish with number four, but number three is set a results checkpoint. This is a huge thing. You have to set some sort of goal. You need a target, whether it's 30 days from now, right? Whether it's 60 days from now, there needs to be a checkpoint. So before you go and hire another coach, make sure that you fully implemented what the last one gave you. It's called leapfrogging, right? You hire a coach, you get all this tangible stuff, you don't apply everything, and then the same holes and gaps that were there X amount of months or a year before are still there because you didn't do anything with that information, and then you put a band-aid on it. It's almost like when you have old leaky pipes, instead of replacing the pipe, you just wrap some masking tape around it. Eventually, it's going to spring a leak. And then it's going to cause even more damage, more problems, and more things from that. So just replace the pipe. Before you go and spend more money that you may not want to or have to, implement and take action on what you've already learned. Nance, what's the fourth takeaway?
Yep. So the fourth takeaway is, guys, let's be honest. Let's call a spade a spade.
Let's be honest.
A lot of this, right? What's happening and what you're feeling, or what your clients might be feeling, is fear. Okay. You're not a perfectionist, right? I think Gary V said it. You're not a perfectionist. You're just scared. You're just afraid. Okay. So stop saying, oh, yeah, well, I'm going to do it. Or, oh, yeah, my business is so great. Or, whatever. Guys, a lot of times we don't take action because we are afraid. So I want you to look it in the face and I want you to lean in and I want you to take action anyway. Okay. Do it scared. Okay. Because if you wait and wait and wait and wait to feel confident, nothing's going to change. You are never going to be there. It is never going to feel exactly right. Robert Herjavec, right? He is one of the sharks on Shark Tank. He shared that in every level of growth in business, it feels scary and chaotic. Okay.
Supposed to.
It's like, oh my gosh, this isn't working. I have literally had meetings with my team and they're all like, oh my goodness, this is this and this is crazy. And I'm like, guys, surprise, it's growth, right? This is what it feels like when we hit next level. It's messy, it's chaotic. And then we can only hope to, right, wrap our arms around it, get some organization and move in the right direction, right? This is what it feels like. So I want you guys to really normalize this. I want you to realize it's fear, right? That ego that you're feeling, that like little thing that you're hiding behind is fear, and do it anyway, right? Even if it feels icky.
So I'm going to close it out with this two things. Number one, first and foremost, whenever you're feeling that way, where you're feeling overwhelmed, where you're feeling just absolutely off the wall crazy with things that you have going on, shift that mindset and say to yourself, the overwhelm that I'm feeling is the abundance that I have asked for. The overwhelming, the overwhelm that I'm feeling is the abundance that I asked for. Just that simple mindset shift makes you appreciate everything that you have going on. Because if it was the reverse, where you had nothing going on, you'd be complaining that you have nothing to work on. So before we sign off of today's training and today's episode, Nancy and I have talked about how we're trying to make it so much easier for people to show up on LinkedIn with great thought leadership, high impact content. So if you would like to download our free high impact LinkedIn post templates, it's three. It's like add Mad Libs where you can fill in the blank, but also we have actually a private GPT prompt that you can use to create and craft your own post. If you're listening on the podcast, just go to the description of the episode where you can click the link and download it yourself. If you're watching on social, all you have to do is just type the words high impact in the chat and we will personally send you the link. So we hope you found today's episode helpful. So remember, the overwhelm that you are feeling is the abundance that you have asked for. So love and gratitude. Have a great rest of your day, and we will talk to you next time.